Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to.
Wonder Leyen is guilty. What happens next? Three scenarios.
Ursula von der Leyen loses on all counts in the
I
Pfizer-Gates
think,
legal case. In other
I
words,
think,
she's
I don't know. Is she officially guilty? I think he's going to offer solution.
Well, let's see. I don't know.
guilty. She is now obligated to show exactly how she negotiated with Pfizer for vaccines through text messages during the COVID-19 pandemic. But let's rewind a bit to explain what's going on. Back in
That's because I
2021,
have no
Europe
idea.
was desperate for COVID-19 vaccines, and Ursula von der Leyen, as president of the European Commission, stepped in. She negotiated a deal with Pfizer, Europe's biggest vaccine contract, and she did it partly over text messages. Yes, actual SMS messages between her and Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla. Now, this deal was massive. By August 2020,
I mean, if there's nothing illegal going on, I don't necessarily have a problem negotiating via text message. I mean, that's good. Keep track of the receipts. Now, if there's shady shit going on, then that's real dumb.
I don't know. I'm not too familiar with this, but
I've never heard of this.
I would think when you're trying to go through procurement, there's a process, there's a bid. Why Pfizer per se?
Oh, why Pfizer?
Yeah. Like, was
Okay.
that the only option? Because did the EU get a good deal? Was they able to shop around to get the best option, or was
I
there like a kickback? Like, ooh.
maybe my initial thought maybe a little innocent, but I kind of thought they were desperate, so they just
Mm-hmm.
did what they had to do.
Because when you go through those process, you need to have other people that
Yeah.
oversees this.
Now, because of desperation, maybe there is like some lenient circumstances because no, they were
Mm-hmm.
desperate, they need vaccines, life had to get back to normal,
Mm-hmm.
which so you had to take certain measures that you wouldn't take in like 2024,
Mm-hmm.
2025. But it depends what she did. Let's see.
the Commission had secured up to 4.6 billion vaccine doses at a very considerable price, with around 71 billion euros worth of contracts. And here's the problem. When journalists asked to see those messages under EU transparency rules, the Commission said they were lost, gone, super suspicious. And this
Sketchy.
obviously sparked outrage. MEPs demanded answers. Transparency
Oh
watchdogs
yeah,
raised alarms. And the New York Times
that's
actually
fair.
sued the Commission in the Court of Justice of the European Union.
New York Times? What the fuck does New York Times have to do with this?
Maybe they requested too, as people part of the what you call that, the press. People of the press were requesting
New York
information.
Times, huh?
That's how serious this became. Fast forward to now, and the General Court, the lower court within the Court of Justice of the European Union, has ruled against the Commission completely. The judges said the public has a right to know how this deal was made, and that includes von der Leyen's text messages with Pfizer CEO. So, what happens next? Well, we see three possible scenarios. Scenario number one, the Commission miraculously finds the texts and releases them, which brings us to two possible outcomes. 1A, the messages are pretty harmless. Some of the heat might die down, but the damage is done. People will still ask why it took years to release them, and whether something was being covered up, even if the texts are clean.
Well, if let's say they were deleted, then an explanation why it took years because they were deleted.
Mm-hmm.
She had to hire somebody to recover. She didn't think it was that serious, so she didn't, and now she hired them or subpoena Apple or whatever used.
Mm-hmm.
Not Apple. I don't know what they used. I don't know.
The delay looks super suspicious. But worse is option 1B. The texts are damaging. They could show that von der Leyen personally negotiated vaccine contracts, got a little too cozy with Pfizer, maybe even came under pressure from them, or completely sidestepped formal EU procurement rules. None of that looks good for her. She could face serious political fallout, public backlash, fresh investigations in the parliament, and anger from national governments, especially those already critical of the vaccine deal's cost. In a very worst case scenario, it could trigger a vote in the parliament. And if 2/3 of MEPs vote to remove her, she and her entire commission are out, plunging the EU into political crisis. This brings us to scenario
Damn.
2.
They're dealing with the states for Trump now. That's crazy.
The
Mm-hmm.
commission
But it seems like they were already dealing with
No,
this.
yeah, they were dealing with it. I'm just kind of surprised how we
Mm.
have not heard of this before.
claims the
Mm.
texts are deleted and cannot be recovered. This will then result in a different kind of scandal. It becomes a story about transparency, or rather, the lack of it, and a lot of talk about a possible cover up. Things will likely escalate once again. Media and watchdogs like
I think if that's the case, she'll have to step down. I
Oh.
For me, like going back back to this. I think the only way she doesn't step down is if the texts are released and they're harmless. I think in that case she doesn't have to step down. There's some loss of trust, as he says, but I think you can kind of reason that, explain whatever, wiggle your way out of it.
Yeah.
If they are damaging, you gotta step down. Not just step down, you
Um,
might go to jail. If the text cannot be recovered, you also
and there's
have to
still
step
a
down.
loss of public trust too.
Yeah, you have to step down.
Like the New York Times or Corporate Europe Observatory, could ramp up legal pressure. The courts might issue financial fines, and the European Parliament could once again launch an investigation. And yes, there is the nuclear option, where MEPs could vote von der Leyen out of office. And this brings us to our final scenario. The Commission appeals the ruling. In the Court of Justice of the European
Well,
Union,
appeal. Of course they're gonna appeal, though. Like, they are gonna appeal, but I would think they would lose in this, the High Court too. And going back to number one or number two.
the General Court is the EU's lower court, and the Commission has 2 months to appeal to the higher court, the European Court of Justice. But appeals aren't easy. They'd have to prove a legal error, not just disagree with the outcome.
Oh,
This would delay the verdict
okay.
and potentially buy time for the defense, or even an alternative scenario we didn't think of. Here's what I think. This is not a good look for von der Leyen, and frankly, it shouldn't be. Making multi
He's so happy talking about it, though.
Why?
I don't know, but look at him.
Yeah.
He's very excited about
But
this.
why?
He clearly don't like
Is-
her.
Is the people do not like her?
I don't know,
in
but I don't
general?
think he likes her. But look how happy he is.
billion euro deals over WhatsApp or SMS, and then conveniently losing the messages? That's not leadership. That's damage control. And honestly, deleting those messages feels less like carelessness and more like they're trying to cover themselves. That being said, I will defend her on one point. Back in early 2021, the EU was lagging behind the US and the UK in getting vaccines.
Right,
I
what
even
I
remember
said.
it today. And at that time, delays literally meant more lives lost. So yes, von der Leyen was under pressure to deliver something or anything.
So maybe she, wouldn't typically have done this. Maybe people can be kind of forgiving.
As I said, I do feel there were some corners cut, maybe some shady shit done. But considering the times and the desperation that we were at back
Yeah.
then,
Early 2021.
early 2021, so this is like January.
Still in the thick of it.
Because I think when the vaccines came out, like the very, very first ones came out in September or something. No, maybe Johnson and Johnson like in July, and then September was like more like a more. So this is like very, very first shot. This is not. We're not talking about the second shot after. This is like the first shot for a lot of people. Sometimes you have to do some shit that might be illegal for the better good of the union. I don't. It's easy for us to judge here when we're not in that position and people's lives are not at our hands. For her,
But what could she have done? Like what?
she
Just-
could have said, okay, give me these vaccines and I'll give you some contracts. Give me these vaccines and I'll guarantee that your vaccine is going to be push number one. Give me these vaccines and I'll let
the
you.
lead. I feel like Pfizer did take the lead of being the one that people took. No.
Maybe that's why. I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe she said, give me these vaccines and I'll.
She
It's
said, "I need the
basically
vaccine."
quid pro quo, right? It's like, do
Yeah.
you do this for me? Whenever you like do something, I'll let you cut a corner. I think that's what.
Fast. As for what's most likely to happen next, my bet is on scenario 3. The Commission will appeal, and if they lose again or don't get the appeal, then it's probably scenario 2. We'll see fines, we'll see public scrutiny, but von der Leyen being removed from office? Honestly, that's very unlikely. It takes a 2/3 majority in the European Parliament.
But I don't know.
400
It's gonna upset a lot of people if you're wasting resources.
I feel like she should resign. It shouldn't be a removal. She
Yeah,
should
she
have
should
like
resign.
at this point you have to resign. This is not like if you don't resign and you looking like Trump. I'm sorry, but that's what it looked like.
180 votes. And since von der Leyen comes from the biggest group,
Like you're a public official. You are not. This is not like an ego power trip. Oh, I'm not gonna resign. No, like it's a bad
Yeah.
publicity. You have to resign. That's how life works.
EPP, removing her would require almost all other groups to unite against her. I have a very hard time seeing all the Social Democrats, the Greens, and the Liberals all going that far. But hey, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to see what we think of Brexit and why
Can I see the comments, please?
Yeah,
Wow.
but he was so happy talking about it. It's crazy. This was funny.
It was smiling in his
Yeah.
eyes. That's so interesting to me.
This is inspiring. It is fantastic to see that EU is one of the only places in the world where justice is indeed above anything else.
Uh,
Thank you for reminding me that we can still hope.
oh.
I think that EU paid extra to get faster delivery than other countries. Okay, that's another possibility. They maybe paid extra. Kind of like almost like a bribery thing where he's like, okay, get me in front of the line. I'll give you extra money to get in front of the line. But
But
again,
if you're transparent of the cause, like I don't see if the public will take
I,
offense to
I think
that.
not the public, but I think other countries would get offended because you're kind of putting them on the back burner.
So what country will get it first above who?
Japan. So Europe said, fuck Japan, give us.
You know, it would be ironic. They all asked for the same thing.
Okay, so maybe they bid the most. I don't know.
Okay.
But that's a good point. Maybe that kind of we really needed those vaccines, but there's no excuse for not being honest about the process. Yeah, I'd love to see the text messages, and then we can make opinions. Until then, we can
Yeah,
speculate.
it's
Yeah, we can
speculation.
speculate. Yeah.
Okay. Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.